I'm Jonathan Menjivar. I'm a podcast producer and someone who likes fancy things. But I grew up working class. My parents were immigrants with factory jobs. And because of that, I think about class a lot. And I want to talk about it. That's what we're doing on my new podcast, Classy.
And what did you all eat? You know, trailer food and I was like, girl, we're not doing that anymore.
You'll hear from people who told me awkward, embarrassing, and strangely intimate things about what class means to them.
She said, for the house cleaner, I hide the tag on the $6 bread. And I just thought, don't you think she knows that you're wealthy? You're hiding the tags from yourself.
Classy, a new podcast from Pineapple Street Studios. Available now, wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Rick Martinez. I'm a cookbook author, video host, and I am a firm believer in a good tomato pie.
I'm Carla Lalli Music. I am also a cookbook author, video host, and I just put skinny dipping down on the August to-do list.
Amen. And this is Borderline Salty, the show where we skinny dip, take your calls, boost your confidence, and make you a better, smarter, and happier cook.
Today, we'll discuss how to cook veggies without heating up the kitchen, the trick to getting even, gorgeous, golden brown cutlets, and the keys to perfect chocolate chip cookies.
And today, on Total Kitchen Nightmare, we'll be sitting with my amazing friend and incredible human being, Eva Longoria, to hear her nightmare.
But before we get into it, I want to share that this week's segment of Tell Me Something Good is brought to you by the Sonos Move, a powerful and portable smart speaker for listening all around your home and beyond. Soundtrack your summer with Sonos. Discover Move plus other speakers and soundbars at Sonos.com. Okay, Rick, now tell me something good.
Carla, I have a new favorite beach snack.
Ooh. Okay, wait, let me guess. Is it frozen grapes?
It is not frozen grapes, sadly. Although, if I did try and take them, I'm sure they'd stay frozen for about 10 seconds before they melted. So there are these things called cocadas.
Mm-hmm.
They're similar to macaroons. It's a mound of coconut that is coated in sugar, normally with a little bit of vanilla and then piloncillo. Sometimes the cook will add a little bit of either evaporated or condensed milk to make it a little bit milky. But they are so incredibly delicious. And I think the reason is because a lot of these cooks will harvest the coconuts that grow along the beach, and then they'll literally just shred the coconut meat out of the shell, cook it lightly in sugar until it just begins to caramelize. So it's just like a really blonde mound of delicious coconut. So it has a little bit of a shell on the outside, but it's still kind of soft and tender in the middle.
Yum. Is it chewy a little bit, like a soft crack?
A little bit. Yeah. And well, because also there's so much moisture in the fresh coconut. And
right.
So, all of those oils, the coconut milk that's inside the flesh is still present. So it's just so incredible. And there are these people that walk by with little boxes, and I'll be laying on the beach, kind of half asleep, and I'll see somebody walking with a little box, and I'm like, okay, wait. What do you have? What do you have? They're like, cocadas. I'm like, okay, I'll take 17, please. Thank you.
Well, look out for that the next time I am at the beach, but usually I'm just looking out for the guy with the rum punch.
I mean, and then there's that. So yeah,
he's a good guy to know.
Also a good beach treat. So Carla, why don't you tell me something good?
Well, I'm happy to report that here we are deep in August, and I just had my first really ripe peach eaten over the sink.
Oh my God, I love peaches over the sink.
I mean, it's a true rite of summer. Summer isn't summer if you haven't eaten a peach over the sink. And this was even a white peach, which is not my normal. I'm Prefer yellow over white, but it was a really good peach.
Oh my God. Wait, so how many did you buy and where'd you get it?
I went last week to the Carroll Street Market. I ended up getting white and yellow peaches that were pretty firm. So these were in my house for 6 full days, like ripening. And in that time, the peach achieved its, height of heights.
Oh, God. I have to say, I do really miss late August in New York, the peaches and the blueberries.
Yeah.
That to me is like the ultimate galette. Like that, when I see those things, I mean, I just want to eat them raw, but then I also want to put them in a galette and eat them with ice cream. Oh, God. Oh, now I want to eat peaches over the sink. Damn it.
Caller number 1, we're ready for you.
Hey, Carla and Rex. My name is Tamala. My cooking conundrum, which happens every year, is how do I get vegetables into my spouse who doesn't like salad during the summer when it's too hot to make roasted broccoli or the other cooked dishes that he loves, but it's just too hot to make like a giant pot of vegetable soup or a big sheet tray of roasted vegetables. So if you could think of any creative ways that I can make vegetables cooked without heating up our home and making us miserable, I'd really appreciate it.
All right, well, this sounds like to me that Pamela's got a opposite of a raw vegan on her hands.
But I completely agree. The last thing I want to do in the summertime is get my house really, really hot in the kitchen. So what I do is I use the grill. In fact, yesterday I made a summer squash ragu, but on the grill. So I just threw a bunch of cut squash, garlic, onion, olive oil on a sheet tray on my gas grill, let it cook at like 375 for about an hour, pulled it out, and then when I was ready to eat, it was cool. I just mashed it up, added some ricotta, some parm, a little bit of lemon zest, a little bit more olive oil, and threw it in some pasta and with a little pasta water. And boom, I've got a really nice summertime meal. And the only thing that I had to heat was on the inside of the house was the pasta and the pasta water. So
Yum. To Rick's point, really just using your burner for a short amount of time or to only do one thing. When vegetables are really peaking, especially things like snap beans and all of the Romano beans, like those are really in season right now. I'm a big fan of like a shallow poach situation. So not even bringing a big pot of water to a boil, but bringing a small amount of water to a boil, salting it really well, and then cooking things like green beans, wax beans, Romano beans, sugar snap peas, just until they're tender. So probably 3 minutes. And then you can cool them down quickly, but they won't have that raw bite to them. And something like that I really love with like a basic aioli, or make a yogurt dip, something like that, or hummus or a white bean puree. And then you can have kind of not raw vegetables that are still not piping hot, and you've barely used your stovetop.
right. Another thing that I like to do too, not necessarily to avoid heating up the house, but just because I like them. So making a vegan version of a ceviche or a carpaccio or an aguachile. And so you'd mentioned roasted broccoli, that your spouse likes that. Well, so you could actually make a broccoli ceviche or aguachile. Use lime, a little serrano, cilantro, a little garlic, a little splash of olive oil, chop up your broccoli really fine, toss that together, serve that with tostadas, some crackers, and you've got a really, really nice like either appetizer, or you can like turn it into a larger meal and have some margaritas. And who's going to know that you're missing any other sides?
Yum. Another thing that I would recommend with all of the summer produce is to do a hot brine pickle. So again, this is a small amount of liquid being heated up for a very short amount of time and then poured over any kind of crunchy vegetable. You can do this with zucchini, cucumbers. You can do it with pickles. I've done it recently with beautiful yellow and red beets, and just thinly slice those things, put them in jars, pour the hot brine over. It will soften them. It will season them. And then they're good to go in the fridge. And then you can make one of my favorite sandwiches of all times, a California veggie, and put all your pickled veg in there.
That is amazing. The other thing is that it sounds like you might also be suffering from a bit of a marketing challenge. Like this idea of a California veggie is essentially a salad inside of bread.
Yeah, we're doing alternative salads here.
Right. Not a fake salad, just to be clear.
I love this. Can't wait to see what you come up with.
Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Hello, you two. It's my name is Mr. Ham, and I'm calling. All right, so you're cooking a cutlet. Let's say maybe it's a pork cutlet. It could be a chicken cutlet. You've properly dredged it and let it come up to temperature. It's not too cold. It's fresh out of the fridge or anything like that. And you've got it in the pan. It's nice and hot. The pan itself is nice and hot before you add the oil. And then you add your meat, and then you get like a nice golden crust around the edges of your cutlet, but maybe it's not exactly sort of like perfectly golden across the entirety of it. And I've tried different things, like perhaps weighing it down. I've got a smaller cast iron pan that I put on top of it. It doesn't really make much of a difference. It's still the center it's not completely golden brown in the way you might like it to be. And I've tried all different things. Maybe the pan's too hot, but I really have no idea. So I'd love your assistance. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Not only do I love this question, I love this accent so much that it's making my heart sing. I can't handle it.
I need to just listen to this man talk
all day. And the conundrum is a really common one. It happens to us all. The trick is you want to get great golden brown color, but it's a thin cut of meat, so you don't want to overcook. So you're in this race against time where sometimes you have to decide, do I want the cutlet to still be juicy, or am I going to just lean into the browning that I'm going for at the possible expense of the meat that is going to spend too much time in the pan? So when this happens to me, and this will happen with both kinds of cutlets, the edges of the cutlet are making good contact with the oil around the edge, but the center has kind of pulled away from the pan a little bit. And in order to get the heat conductivity to carry to the center of your cutlet so that the browning is going to happen evenly everywhere, you just need more oil in the pan. The oil is really acting as an invisible bridge between the surface of the pan and the protein that you have put into the pan. And if it's too low there, it's just the cutlet has nothing to get brown in. It's going to get hot, but it's not going to get brown. If you're only doing one or two cutlets, pick a skillet that is just big enough to hold them snugly. If you have a ton of extra real estate in the pan, you're just going to be pouring a lot of extra oil. So keep them snug. Make sure there's a good amount of oil so that they're making contact with that cooking medium.
And I would also recommend cast iron or a heavy skillet. A lot of times what happens if your pan is really thin, you will actually have hot and cold spots. And so I'm not certain what pan you're using, but you might get that really nice brown, golden brown color on the edges of your cutlet because your pan is thin, and so maybe your cutlet is sitting over the
outer edge.
Your fire.
Yeah.
And so the center may be a little bit cooler on your pan and therefore not giving you that even browning. So by using a cast iron or a heavy-bottomed skillet, you'll actually have a much more even heating, and then the chances of you getting an even golden crust on your cutlet are going to be increase exponentially. And it sounds like the cutlets that you're using are pre-sliced, which means that all of the protein strands in the meat are intact. Whereas if you pound a pork chop, for example, and flatten it out to make a cutlet, you will actually break down the proteins and they won't pucker up when they hit the heat because they will have broken. So you may want to, if you're buying these pieces of meat from the store pre-cut, you may want to just give it a quick pound to break up the protein, and then you're good to go to season it and bread it and then cook it.
Super smart, Rick. Love that.
Caller, you're on.
Hi, Rick and Carla. My name's Abby, and my question is this. Is there any reason to be using a wooden spoon instead of another utensil? Because recently, in a lot of recipes, I've been seeing mix with a wooden spoon, And I can't believe that there's any difference between that and like a silicone spoon or a spatula or something like that. So is this all some kind of a wooden spoon conspiracy, or is there really a reason to be using one?
This segment of Borderline Salty is sponsored by Big Wood. Thank you, Big Wood. Big Wood USA.
Oh my God. You know, I have been waiting for that Big Wood sponsorship for so long.
Honestly, if I had to work for a conglomerate, I would want it to be the wooden spoon conglomerate. I would really feel at home.
Yeah. Well, as long as they were exotic woods, right?
Oh,
I want
God.
a big
Only the most exotic
wood.
teaks and
Yes.
Okay, so you know what was going through my mind when I was listening was like, why would you use a wooden spoon instead of any other spoon? Is because you want to save your hearing. There is no worse sound to me than the sound of a metal spoon in like a metal pan. It is so upsetting.
Wait. Okay, so are you responsible for, at BA, whenever there was a ground beef recipe and it said, cook your ground beef using a wooden spoon to break up the clumps of beef as you cook until, and it's brown and delicious. Was that you? Like, because I always wondered, like, why would it matter, like, if I used a wooden spoon or a metal spoon or a fork, for that matter?
So now you're on Team Abby? What's this? I take the fifth. I'm pleading the fifth. I have no further questions.
I am just asking a simple question, Your Honor. We have a hostile witness on the stand.
I know for breaking up beef, I don't think it has to be a wooden spoon, but I can think of many, many examples, like when it's something like you've cooked a nice piece of pork and gotten great color on it, take it out of the pan, add liquid. Whenever we talk about deglazing, we would say use a wooden spoon to scrape up the brown bits from the surface of the pan. I feel like a silicone spatula doesn't have the integrity. It's just too
right.
It's going to like gently slide over the top of the fond. So you want something sturdy, but could you use a fish spatula? Sure. You want to use a metal spoon? Great. You live alone? You love screeching noises? Cool. No conspiracy here. We just love Big Wood.
Big Wood. Everybody should like Big Wood. Come on. What's not to love? You just want to give that Big Wood a big hug.
And if you listen to this episode backwards, it'll be like, da, 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 use wooden spoons. La, 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 wooden spoons are the best. La, 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 la. Wooden spoons are nothing. $9.99. I think we have time for one more caller.
Hello, Rick. Hello, Carla. This is Brian. So I have a recipe that's been stumping me for years, and I'm no slouch in the kitchen. I've done so much baking with my grandmother and my mother, but for some reason, no matter what recipe I try, I cannot produce a fantastic chocolate chip cookie. I've tried all sorts of different butters, different flours, different recipes. My husband can throw everything in the mixer, whip it up, and then it's done. But I follow the directions and it just isn't working for me. So I need some help.
I have a feeling Rick and I are thinking the same thing, which is if our husband is great at making chocolate chip cookies and we are not, just take that as like a gift and a sign and go lie back down on the couch and like make sure the milk is ice cold when those cookies come out of the oven.
Oh,
but if you feel really compelled to master this chocolate chip cookie, I think there's a couple things to think about as you head into a recipe. And Rick and I have definitely said this before, but there really are not bad cooks. There are bad recipes. So the first thing I would say is like, make sure that recipe is vetted. Make sure it has a lot of really good reviews. Make sure it's from a publication or a book that you trust. Beyond that, if it is a good recipe, you need to know like what to look for and to make sure you're paying attention visually. But this is Rick's jam. So like, Rick, break down the chocolate chip cookie, the wish list, the highs, the lows. Like, what are we looking for?
So one of the things that completely changed my baking is the use of a scale. Years and years ago, I was cross-testing a recipe that did not have weights, and it was a friend of mine who made this snickerdoodle, and it was a really delicious snickerdoodle. I tasted hers, and I could not for the life of me remake this cookie. And what it ended up coming down to was the way that we measured our flour. Because we weren't using scales, like I was doing the spoon and level method, as was she, But she was using like this teeny tiny spoon, and I was using like a really big mounded, soup spoon full of flour. And that actually impacted the weight of the flour in the recipe by almost an ounce. My cookies were very fat and bready. Her cookies were really thin and crispy. And so look for a recipe that has, good reviews from a place you trust, that also has gram amounts, and then get yourself a really good scale. I love a brown butter cookie. I also really like a stir cookie, like a one bowl, just dump everything in and stir. So what I would do first is I would look for a one bowl cookie recipe. There are Martha Stewart recipes that are really good. I have a one bowl skillet cookie, which I really like. And you can actually use that dough and just scoop it out in 1 ounce scoops, put that on a sheet tray and bake that, and you will get like a thinner cookie.
Yeah, I have one too. It's a Stella Parks recipe that is so easy. Like you can't believe they're going to work out because you literally just dump everything in and stir it, and it makes a great cookie.
Yeah. And then I think, once you get a recipe under your belt that you're getting really good success from, then I think you can migrate into like a creamed situation. And then from there, go into a brown butter. And then you can just kind of experiment and, get to the point I think that your husband is at, where it seems like he's just effortlessly throwing things together and all of a sudden this magical cookie appears. Otherwise, I would just let him do the work. Like, you make something else.
Yeah, sometimes the common mistakes that I make when I'm making chocolate chip cookies, and it is a cookie that I really love to make, is I often overbake. You should pull them before you think they're dark because they continue cooking. So I always sort of take the cookie out when it's like exactly where I want it to end up. And then they always go a little bit over. So they'll be a little bit crisper or a little bit tougher than I hope they should be. And then I would also do a little detective work in the titling of the recipe because of the different styles of cookies. Like, what I would say is there's a cookie jar for every type of cookie out there. And you have to decide if you're a thin and crispy person, if you're a fat and chewy person, if you want like crispy on the outside and chewy in the middle. And then look for recipes that give you those clues in the recipe title. So you want to find a recipe title that doesn't just say classic chocolate chip cookie because there are so many, but look for a recipe title that aligns with the type of cookie you want to eat.
The other thing, actually, when you were talking about that, the cook times, I was thinking, one thing that I always do if I'm making a cookie recipe for the first time is the first bake, I only bake at most 6 cookies. If I'm not quite sure how much they're going to spread, or if I'm not sure quite what the cooking time is going to be, I'll only bake 4 to 6 at a time. And then just see what they do. Like, see how far they spread. Do I agree with what the bake time is? Did I get a nice puff? Was it cracked? Was it cracked enough? Did it not crack at all? Did I get the little rings on the outside? And then I'll adjust it for those kinds of things. So I bake the first small batch, I look at it, and then I make adjustments.
Smart. You're smart.
Oh, thanks, Carla. So are you.
It's time for our next segment, Total Kitchen Nightmare.
In this segment, we're bringing in friends, our culinary heroes, to share their kitchen disasters. And this week, we are speaking to a very special guest, a very dear, sweet person, a very good friend of mine, none other than Miss Eva Longoria.
Eva is really someone who does it all. An actress, a producer, a director, an activist, philanthropist, entrepreneur, and now the host of her own podcast, Connections with Eva Longoria.
We are so excited to chat with her, and I truly can't wait to hear what kitchen nightmare she has in store for us. Hello.
Hi, y'all.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Same here.
I agree. We're not here to talk about the great moments in your life. You're here to talk about your biggest total kitchen nightmare moment. Set the scene. Let's hear it.
Yes, the fried turkey craze was taking off. And I'm like, Thanksgiving's the most important holiday in our household. And so I've been a turkey connoisseur my whole life. Yes, the roasting, the frying, the brining, the not brining, the butter in the skin, the butter not under this. I mean, like I've done it all. But it was when this fried turkey thing came out and it was dangerous. You've got to like connect the gas line to the thing, and then you fill up your turkey fryer with water, place your turkey in there to see how far it fills up, then take out your turkey, dump out the water, and then you know where your oil line is. It's just a whole thing. And I was like, oh my God, this is so much work. But I guess I mismeasured. And so when I put the turkey in, it just overflowed.
Oh my God.
And then caught fire from the fire. I'm surprised I didn't burn down my house.
Wow.
I was by
God.
myself. Nobody was home.
What?
Yeah, because I was like, I was doing a test run before Thanksgiving.
Wow.
This is how serious I take Thanksgiving.
So prepared.
Yes, and it didn't blow up, but it just like caught fire. I was like, oh my gosh. And it just died down by itself.
Wow.
Because I was like, I know I don't put water, but do I put flour? Like, I didn't even know what to do with an oil fire. What are you supposed to do?
You can throw kosher salt on it if you have it.
Okay.
But were you like outside in your driveway?
I was outside near the garage, yeah.
Okay.
At least I was smart enough to be outside.
Yeah. Oh my God. Wow.
But also smart enough to take all of these precautionary measures. I never knew that part about the water, but that's so smart to check how much it's going to rise.
Yeah, how much it's going to rise because it's such a dense piece of poultry. But now I found an electric fryer, and so that's safer. Like I feel like I won't blow anything up. Like oil may get everywhere, but at least I won't blow the house up.
Right. And there's no like gas tank sitting next to a giant bubbling vat of oil, which has always sort of freaked me out.
I was like, I feel like somebody should be doing this. That's not me. Because it's like gas.
There you go.
And screwing things on. And I was like listening. I was YouTubing everything because I was like, how to connect the gas to your fryer. I mean, this is not things normal people should be doing.
So even though you had the terrifying fire in your test run, did you end up going forth and frying for the actual Thanksgiving day?
I did fry, and it was great. I mean, I've never gone back, I'll tell you that. I don't roast my turkey anymore. I don't roast a turkey. I make like 4 turkeys. So you don't have the oven space to do 4 turkeys in 8 hours. Like, so when you fry a turkey, it's about 45 minutes per turkey. So I just boom, 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 boom. And mostly everybody is more excited about my leftovers more than the Thanksgiving. So I make turkey salad sandwiches, like on an open-faced sourdough, and I do pozole with turkey.
Ooh.
Love.
Yes. So everybody's like waiting for that, like the second round, and I'm like, we ate all the turkey. We don't have any turkey. They're like, what do you mean we don't have any turkey?
Rick and I love failures. Like we love talking about our failures because they are so like intertwined with anything that ever worked out for us as well. Like in just the process of every recipe development, there's the big idea, the attempt, the fail, the tribulations, and then the success. So with the fire, I love that you just got right back up on the horse and fried again. But was there something about that fail that you think makes you a better chef today?
Yeah. I love kitchen fails too because there's so many beautiful things that can come out of it. Like I was in Oaxaca, and Oaxacan cheese, which is called quesillo, was an accident.
Really?
Oh.
Yes, it was an accident. It was this little young maiden. She must have been 12. She was supposed to watch the cheese. It over-curdled. And so she poured boiling water into it to try to get it back to its form. And she tried to, get it back to like a brie consistency, and it just got stringier and stringier.
Oh my gosh.
And she was like, oh my God, I'm like, my parents are going to kill me when they come back. And that's how quesillo was made, it was a mistake. And so now, once it gets to a certain point, they pour boiling water, and you have to stir it really fast and mold it really fast, and then it comes into that ball. And that's why it's kind of stringy and melts deliciously. But that was a mistake.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's the best cheese in the world.
It is 100% the best cheese.
Well, back to the mistakes. Like, there's so many mistakes I make. So many mistakes. And then you're like, I kind of like this. But over COVID, when everybody was making sourdough, I was making croissants. I mean, it takes 3 days to make a croissant. So like the first day is the the dough. The second day is the folding. The third day is the rolling, proofing, baking. And so you see when you fuck it up because your butter did not incorporate and it's just chunks and you're like, and they still come out amazing. And so I had like a whole cycle because I was doing it every day. So every day was like that batch is on the second day, this batch is on the third day, but I'm making the first day because I wanted to keep moving it along. And I would always go, I screwed up. And my husband was like, well, I don't know where you screwed up in the process because it's still tastes amazing. But like I could see the folds weren't right. I could see the chunks of butter, it wasn't distributed equally. It didn't fold in well. And so that was a fun, months of failure to do croissants.
I wish I had been your neighbor during that time. Good God. Like, okay, I'm ready for my daily bag of croissant fuck-ups.
Yes, I kept screwing them up. And some days it also depended on the weather.
Right, yeah.
Because we were in Valle de Bravo, which is a lake in Mexico. And if I made them in Mexico City, obviously the altitude's different.
It sounds like you're definitely not afraid of mistakes. We welcome them. And like if you were encouraging your son or encouraging a listener who has had a failure and wasn't able to even eat the mistake, like I always eat my mistakes, what would you tell them just to keep going?
I mean, my advice, I think, to people is like, obviously to keep going, keep moving. And I think, if you look at the history of food and the evolution of food and the travel of spices, there were these two women. They were the first cookbooks out of Mexico, Josefina and, I forget the other woman. But when they first made their cookbooks in English for U.S. homes, they said, they would say chili poblano. And if you don't have a poblano where you live, use a bell pepper. It was like food is meant to evolve, and it's sort of like a scarcity. Like you don't have that in your region. I don't have chipotle, so I'm going to use something else to add heat, or whatever. And I think that's how new dishes that's how Tex-Mex came to be, right? That's how California Mexican food came to be. Like, it's just different.
I think I'm going to get a pillow or one of those needlepoint frames for my kitchen that just says accidents happen.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, they do all the time.
Yeah. Eat your mistakes.
Eat your mistakes. That's a better needlepoint.
Yeah, eat your mistakes. Oh my God.
Well, Eva, thank you so much for spending this time with us. And it seems like Thanksgiving is a far way away, but let it be a cautionary tale to everybody. You're starting your planning now. Just, do the water check, make sure somebody's home, get out the fire extinguisher.
Yes. Maybe when doing something dangerous, have a fire extinguisher, make sure somebody's home.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Have a partner.
Have a partner.
That's really good advice.
Well, thank y'all so much. It was fun to talk to you.
What is the secret to making great toast?
Oh, you're just going to go in with the hard-hitting questions.
I'm Dan Pashman from The Sporkful. We like to say it's not for foodies, it's for eaters. We use food to learn about culture, history, and science. There was the time we looked into allegations of discrimination at Bon Appetit, or when I spent 3 years inventing a new pasta shape.
It's a complex noodle that you've put together.
Every episode of The Sporkful, you're going to learn something, feel something, and laugh. The Sporkful from Stitcher. Get it wherever you get your podcasts.
The Splendid Table podcast, hosted by me, Francis Lamb, is a great place to come for the holidays. We talk to amazing people this holiday season, from Nigella Lawson to the New Yorker's Helen Rosner to baking superstar Valerie Lomas. We have ideas for everything from gifts, homemade and not, our picks of the new cookbooks, what you should be baking for the holidays, and how to be a great guest. Listen to The Splendid Table wherever you get your podcasts.
So before we put on our jacket and boots and march on out of here, it is time for one more segment, and that segment is No Thank You Please. And the ingredient we are talking about today is
raisins.
I love a raisin.
I do too.
Listen, I know the idea of a secret raisin or a raisin in a place where they did not think it was going to be is very upsetting to a lot of people. Like sometimes in savory food, especially, if there's just like a free radical raisin, it might be a little jarring.
Right. I think it's finding that balance.
Yes.
So like I've used it in more of an Argentinian style or a Spanish style picadillo, which I like pairing, but very judiciously, maybe a quarter to a third of a cup of raisins with olives.
Right.
Because then you get like that salty briny plus like sweet pop of raisin in this like very savory, meaty situation.
Yeah. And I think we underuse the idea of chopping up a raisin. Like in order to include a raisin in something, it doesn't have to be like a whole plump raisin. It could be just like you're getting into craisin territory,
right,
or they're spread out, they're a little bit of sweetness, but you're not like getting a hot raisin.
Right. You know, that's really interesting, just the idea of treating a raisin. So like raisins are actually very common in moles.
Mm-hmm.
And what normally happens is you fry the raisin in a little bit of lard. And so it becomes a little bit toasty, a little bit savory because of the lard, but then you're also boiling it and then completely blending it. So to your point, like you're distributing the sweetness, and what it really does is it just adds sweetness and acidity to the mole without like having a raisin in your mouth.
Totally. Yeah, I also think we should investigate whether as human beings on Earth, and maybe specifically Americans, are just anti-raisin because of the wrinkles. Like we have such an obsession in this country with youth and like smooth foreheads and like the whole frickin' thing that we just can't embrace a wrinkle. And the wrinkle really comes with age and with concentration of everything. Like the water has evaporated, that tasteless, sort of useless plumping and just taking up space. You've got a raisin that is distilled down to the essence, right? There's a lot of wisdom in a raisin. And I think like, let it go. It's okay to have lines around your mouth, and it's okay to love a raisin.
But for those that might want to find that skincare treatment fountain of youth for their raisins, what I have done in pastries is I have soaked them, which I actually really enjoy because you're adding an additional flavor. So, for example, in a rum cake, in a stollen, even in oatmeal cookies, I have soaked the raisins, sometimes in hot apple cider, sometimes in rum, sometimes in a liqueur. And you just soak it in warm liquid for about 15 to 30 minutes, and it plumps up, and those wrinkles just melt away. And now your raisin is plump, and all those wrinkles are gone, and you look 30 days younger.
I think I'm kind of the weirdo. Like, I don't like chocolate-covered strawberries or like fruit flavor in my chocolate, but I do like the kind of chocolate candy bar that has raisins and nuts in it.
Yeah. Isn't it the Cadbury bar that has the almonds and the raisins? That is really, really good.
Yeah, I loved that. I loved those.
No, those are super delicious.
And I think if you know it's there, again, this is sort of like a big part of it. And I think a big part of people's objection is if you're eating carrot cake and you're surprised by a raisin, like you need to do some self-work. Like they're likely to be... I mean, they're very likely to be there.
What she's saying, callers, is you're wrong.
I could see this similar to our marketing problem about salads that we had earlier. So maybe we just have to like rebrand raisin. I think it's gotten a bad rap, and I understand it. But if you just were to call them dehydrated grapes, would more people eat them?
They might be more likely to. I also think that, I mean, at least for me, I remember getting those little boxes of the Sun-Maid raisins like as a snack, and I'm just like, I don't want this as a snack. Put it in a cookie.
Right. Oh, God. If someone gives that to you on Halloween, that is the biggest fuck you ever.
I know. I mean, that really started an aversion to me until like I actually was like, oh, no, they're really good in things, but like...
But not in this like weird sticky box.
No. And like your fingers like turn all gross and raisiny, like because you're like digging out like the raisins out of this tiny little box. I'm like, no, gross.
Oh, well, I hope we haven't scared off another advertiser. Sun-Maid? We do love a raisin.
We do. We really do. Just not in those tiny little boxes. And that's it for this week's episode of Borderline Salty.
You can find recipes and recommendations from this week's episode in our show notes.
And this will be our last new episode for now. Mom and Dad need to take a little break and dip our toes into the salty, warm water.
But if you love the show and you want to be notified the minute we are back on, it would behoove you to subscribe. And if you haven't listened to all of the previous episodes, do that now. Check out the bank of previous episodes for more of our advice and banter and laughter. And we can't wait to talk to you again.
And we will very soon. Borderline Salty is an original production by Pineapple Street Studios. We're your hosts. I'm Rick Martinez.
I'm Carla Lalli Music. You can find links to our work in the show notes for this episode.
Natalie Brennan is our lead producer.
Janelle Anderson is our producer.
Our managing producer is Agarena Shagre.
Our assistant producer is Mari Orozco.
Our head of sound and engineering is Raj Makija.
Mixing and engineering by Davey Sumner and Jason Richards.
Our assistant engineers are Sharon Bardalis and Jade Brooks.
Original music from our very own Raj Makija.
Additional music from Vincent Vega, Spring Gang, and Glovebox, courtesy of Epidemic Sound.
Legal services for Pineapple Street are provided by Bianca Grimshaw at Granderson Des Rochers.
Our executive producers are Max Linsky and Jenna Weiss-Berman.
We appreciate Pamela, Mr. Ham, Abby, and Brian for calling in this week. And we really appreciate every single person who has helped us make the first 20 episodes of this show. We love you so much.
This would not be possible without you. Thanks to all of you for continuing to listen, sending us your questions, sending us pictures of your nails. We love you so much. We can't wait to see you again.
It's not farewell. It's see you later.
Ciao for now.
Ciao for now.